Okay, hi you guys. I'm recording on Zoom because I just want to put this out there and record this while it is fresh for me. And so just welcome to this week's episode of the Expandable podcast. I've been having issues with my recording software, so just bear with me. But I had an experience last night that I felt would be very powerful to talk about because I had some serious realizations within myself. Um, and I just feel like there's going to be value in here for somebody, no matter where you are at on your healing journey or like process of just evolution and growth within your own life. Um, I was posed a question by a friend, I guess you could say, and not even really a question. He basically just said to me, like, called me out and said there was levels that I still needed to grieve about my marriage that were within myself. And so I was like, what do you mean there's like layers of grief? Like, what do you mean by this? And so I'm going to talk about this because I feel like this is something that I had some realizations and I feel like you could apply this to any area of your life. And he basically said, he's like, I don't think, he's like, sure, maybe you've grieved your marriage. Maybe you've grieved the loss of like the relationship. Maybe you've grieved all of that and maybe you're good. But he's like, have you really grieved you? And I went, like, ooh, like that hurt almost. Like you know, when you get hit with such a, like, so much truth, it like pierces you in your heart. That's what this felt like. And so I went, okay, clearly there's something here because it immediately made me want to cry. And so that was like a week ago. And last night when I was doing yoga, I just did yoga because I was like, I need to move. I'm feeling stiffness in my hips again, which means I'm storing some stuff and like, let's just move through it. And so I'm laying in Shavasana and I'm in complete stillness and I felt so much peace. And in that peace and stillness, my body obviously felt safe enough to release. And this is something that I feel like when you do breath work and you've done journeys and all of these things, your body starts to learn it is safe to exist here. And this is some serious work that I personally have been doing over the last year or two, is coming back, and no, honestly, 3 years now, coming back into my body and being like, you don't need to disconnect. You don't need to disassociate. You don't need to run away from the feelings, emotions, and pain. It is safe to feel. You're going to be okay. It is safe to feel. You're going to be okay. And so last night, in the safety of just me knowing I am safe to express, I'm safe to feel, and emotions are okay, I don't need to run away from them anymore, my body just started releasing. And in that releasing, I was shaking. I was moving my hips. I like had all of these movements happening where the only time I felt my body move like this, you guys, is through plant medicine ceremonies. And it was doing it with zero substance. This was just my body activating and feeling safe enough to just do what it needed to do to start releasing. And if you're not familiar with this, this is where I feel somatic work is so key. Like, this is just a completely different thought, right? I'm going to go about the grief and all that in a second, but like, talk therapy keeps you up here. It keeps you in your mind. It keeps you reliving and repeating stories that you already consciously know. You're typically not really getting to the root that is the memories that are stored within your body. Our body, like if you haven't read Your Body Keeps the Score, it's kind of dry and it's very scientific. So like it's not super exhilarating, for example, but all you really need to know from that is that no matter what has happened to you in your life, it could be your mom yelled at you while you were in the back seat. You were in a car accident. Something happened to you where you really didn't feel safe and your life felt like it was in danger. Your first boyfriend didn't show up for you emotionally or like pushed past a boundary or a barrier. And so you did not feel safe. Anything in your life, big trauma, little trauma, doesn't matter. Your body remembers. And just like our bodies are fluid beings, so think about this, like you drink water, it needs to leave you. You eat food, it needs to leave you. You have emotions, they also need to move through you. Everything is fluid and moving through us all the time. Emotions are no different. However, if you don't feel safe in your body to feel it, or even think about this, something happens to you, you feel an emotional reaction, like you feel like crying, but you're in a public place, so you hold it in. What did I just do? Because if you're not going to hold, like if you're not going to allow your body to release it, you might hold your breath, you might stiff your body, you might harden, you might whatever, right? You just stored that emotion in your body and it's going to stay there until you have the courage and feel safe enough to go back and move these through you. And so there could be emotions from the time you were 0 to 30, it could be 0 to 50, that are stored within your body right now. Things that are sitting within you, causing you pain, causing you shoulder pain. As I'm talking about this, I have pain right here. I used to store a lot of pain in my knee. I feel it in my hips, like pain in your body. And it's your alarm systems going off trying to say like, hey, remember this thing? but we don't logically think of it like that, right? We don't consciously think of like our shoulder pain that like, hey, that's this emotion. Remember when this happened when you were 14 and you didn't feel the emotion, so you went like this, or you stored it there? Like, we don't think about that, but that's our body. Our body keeps these memories and holds them for us until we're ready to move through it. And I'm like, how amazing that our body is willing to do that for us. Like, let us not have to deal with it until we're ready, but it hangs on, and it's like, hey, we're just going to keep these, just wait on you until you're ready to move through this and deal with this. That is part of what our bodies do when we store emotion and hold emotion. So, or like don't navigate the emotions. And so anyways, what I was going to say is why I don't really love talk therapy is it's not really necessarily going to take you that deep. And I think some of us, we think we're doing better. We're like, oh yeah, I'm working on my mental health because I like go to talk therapy. And I'm like, great first step, like great first step. If that is your first step ever and like taking care of yourself is going to talk therapy. But I'm just going to tell you, you can go so much deeper, have so much more powerful healing if you're willing to do the somatic stuff, which could be finding stillness within your body, breath work, finding safety, going to conferences that force you to do breath work, plant medicine ceremonies, any somatic work at all, somatic practitioners of any regard. It's going to take you so much deeper, so much faster. You're going to heal more stuff quicker than you ever could doing talk therapy. Again, where I'm going to plug you, like, go to Awaken, go to another person I love, Preston Smiles and Alexi, I forget her last name. They do an event that's completely based on somatics. I took like they did a couple exercises with us at the relationship intensive, which were insanely powerful in helping me connect and understand my intimacy stuff and where I'm storing different things in my body and how I'm unwilling to connect with others still, which is super important if you're like looking at starting a new relationship or even deepening the relationship that you're in right now. And so anyways, when I talk about the somatics and the healing. So last night when I felt safe, right? Like I've been working, I want you to also remember, I've been doing this work for 3 years, deep somatic work on my body, because what I used to do the moment that I felt an ounce of discomfort, an ounce of pain, an ounce of, oop, this is making me want to cry. Oop, this makes me feel sad. Oop, this is really making me feel uncomfortable. And like, I'm starting to get hot and warm and I can feel emotions coming up. I would disassociate, disconnect and be like, oh, I don't really want to feel that. So I'm just going to leave my body. And things happened to me in my past, in my childhood, in different situations where it was not safe for my soul. We're souls in physical bodies, whether you believe it or not. I just believe that is true. True. You look at a baby, you can feel that there's a soul in there. You're not just a physical body, you're both, okay? Spiritual soul in your physical body. Anyway, there was times where it was not safe and my soul was so harmed and hurt. It was better for me to leave than stay and experience what I was experiencing in my physical body. And so because of that, I got really good at disconnecting, disassociating, and I can handle absolute chaos right in front of me, really crazy stuff happening, and I will be stone-faced, totally normal. I don't know if I could do that anymore, but you can turn it on and you can just leave. And so I'm sitting in front of you, but I'm not here. Like my soul, my being, my feeling body, like everything has left so that I don't have to actually like be here and witness and be in it. But my body is taking all of that on, even though I've disconnected. And so the minute like uncomfortable things would happen, I was really good at that. So I would just like, I'm done, I'm out. And I would come back when it was like safe to come back. Okay. Does this make sense? Maybe you've experienced this, maybe you haven't. So I got really good at that. So when I started doing the somatic work and I was working with body workers and healers that were like, okay, you just left again. They're like, come back. They would have to call me back because it was like, I can feel emotion coming up. I'm just going to leave so that I don't have to actually process and feel this. I would leave. And so what I want to explain to you is like last night when this happened, this takes deep work to get to a place where your body feels so safe that it can navigate this with you and you alone. I didn't need a facilitator. I felt safe enough. Oh my God. I felt safe enough to move through this all on my own. And I didn't know this was going to come up, by the way. I did yoga, like assuming like I'm just going to go to bed. And then in the stillness, I was like, oh my God, what is happening? And my body started shaking. Shaking is a really normal release process. So the same way you see like an animal, for example, gets hit or like runs into something, they're going to shake it off. Kids might like get hit and they shake it off. It's a normal animal. Like you have to remember we are animals, but not, you know what I'm saying? It's an animal body, right? Our physical body, animal body. We feel people based on our animal body. We know if they're safe or not safe. Like we feel all of this around us all the time. And so I'm laying there and shaking, like my body just starts shaking. And I'm like, okay, this is kind of crazy. I've never had this happen before, but like move through it because obviously your body feels safe enough to do this right now, and there's something you need to release. So like, just go through it. And so I'm giving my body permission and encouraging myself and being like, it's okay, just move through it, just move through it, just move through it. I start doing all these things. My body starts toning. I start making all of these noises. I start doing like Reiki on myself. I'm like clearing energy. I'm ripping it out of me. I'm moving it away. This may sound really, really crazy to you, depending on where you are in your journey. And I know if somebody saw me, they probably could have looked at this and been like, what the F is going on? And it might feel really scary. But think of how much you have stored within your body that sometimes needs to be released. And you also pick up energy from other people, right? And anyway, so like my body starts releasing all this stuff. I'm like shaking like a crazy person. I don't even know how my body was moving like this. I'm moving through it. I'm feeling emotions. I felt like screaming at one point. I was like screaming, raging, but like quiet. I was like crying. I was hyperventilating. My body started taking me through breath work, different breath work patterns. Like it was so wild. And ultimately, once I was in it, I was like, I was just trusting my body to move me through this experience, right? Right. I was trusting my body to just move me through this experience and like take me through this process. What are you going with? I was trusting my body to move me through this experience. And in that, I remembered, because I was like, okay, it's going to show me whatever it's going to show me, right? And so it's like taking me through, and I wasn't really seeing like big, like images. Like sometimes in breathwork or plant medicine, like you're taken through a very visual experience. I didn't really have that. It was more just like moving me through emotions that clearly needed to be released and processed. And so I'm moving through those, and then I remembered the grief thing that had been mentioned to me a week ago, and how it's like you've grieved that, but you haven't grieved the you that was in the relationship. You haven't grieved the younger you. You haven't grieved the you that you were that stayed in the relationship, that like processed all these things, that didn't feel all of these things. The you that you almost have to grieve for, like that girl, that like younger version of you that like did all of that, like went through that relationship and all of those things. Can you close it? Thank you. And so basically he had said to me, like, you need to grieve the you that was in that marriage and in that relationship. And I went, holy crap. So like, as I'm laying there, I was like, just say this to yourself and see what comes up. And I was just like, whoa, there are so many layers to this that I needed to feel and process. And again, no shame on, this is the thing, right? Like when you talk about old relationships, I never want to, it's me, it's who I was when I got into that relationship that led to where our relationship went and why we attracted each other. The same way that like different things led to where we obviously got to within our marriage, right? And who I became versus who he became, whatever. All I want to say is if you have been, no matter what, like you could have been in marriages before, you could have been in relationships before, you could be in a marriage right now, you could be in a new season of your marriage. There could be things that have caused you hurt in your current relationship. There could be things that have caused you hurt in different areas of your life. What I want to say is there can be layers of grief that you think you process and you think you've moved through or you've gotten over, but you haven't gone through all the layers. And so it's like, I've done a lot of work. I've done a lot of healing. I've been actively working at this for over a year now, especially with the marriage thing, 2 years, honestly. And this was something that until he was able to point this out to me, I went, shit, you're right. And like, this is where it's so helpful to have people in your corner who can really see you, know you, love you, and also be able to be like, hey, no, this doesn't make sense, or like push you towards being more accountable, or push you to like where maybe you haven't healed in the most loving way. And like, I've done a lot of work, but this is a layer that I couldn't have seen unless someone pointed it out to me. And so I'm so grateful for that. And I went, you're right. And so last night I kind of went through this and I went, okay, you need to mourn and grieve a version of you that allowed this type of relationship where you felt completely unsupported emotionally, where it made you question. Here's the thing, I will preface with this. I entered the relationship already having low self-worth, low self-esteem from an abusive relationship prior, right? I had healed a lot of it, like I was elevating, but I wasn't who I am today at all. And so fair that I maybe attracted someone who also wasn't going to raise my self-worth because I have to do that myself, right? But in this relationship, my emotional needs didn't feel met. I didn't feel super seen, heard, understood, cared for. Obviously, he loves me. He cares about me. That's not what I'm saying. Someone can love you and care about you, but not know how to show it to make you feel it, right? And so I had to grieve the girl who like stayed in a relationship where I felt worthless, like in the beginning with like the sex stuff that went on, like feeling not good enough, questioning my own worth, like it making me think I wasn't good enough or not pretty enough or like, I don't know, not good at sex. Like it made me question all these things. And so I kind of had to go through the versions of me in that marriage and relationship and all the things that I needed to grieve for me. I also realized I made some notes here. And I just went, I had to grieve the me that felt so worthless and didn't know I deserved better. Like who I was at 21 versus who I am now at 30, going to be 32 this year. Like we are not the same. And who I am now, like knows the level of what I deserve. And I would never tolerate anything less than that. And I'm even being so mindful as I date people because I'm like, you know, like the high level of like who you are as a person and how worthy you feel on your own, that if some other partner is going to come in and make you question that, like they're not right for you. And I've talked about this before. And so it was like me having to grieve that old version of me that felt so worthless that I didn't know I deserved better, which I'm like, is so sad. Like for baby 21-year-old me that like didn't understand how deserving I was to be treated so well. Right? Like I had to grieve her. I had to grieve that previous version of me. I had to grieve the person who laid there at night not being able to communicate with her partner. And so I navigated really, really heavy emotions alone because we weren't at the place yet to like properly talk to each other and communicate with each other. And he didn't know how to hold space for my emotions. He was a baby too, right? So it's like both of us, but like not knowing how to hold space for my emotions, even though I knew I deserved better, not better, but like more, I guess, like depth or intimacy, whatever. And like laying alone every night, especially during conflict and like feeling so alone. And like the girl who just stayed in that, hoping and waiting for it to change or get better, and like would wake up the next morning like everything was okay and just let it all slide even though I wasn't okay and my heart was hurt. And these are like little micro tears and heart things that like hurt my heart that over time built like a wall between us, right? And so I also had to mourn the fact that like the alcohol, I realized last night, I was like, oh my God, you've always been so tolerant to drunkenness because you grew up around a lot of drunks. A lot of the people you grew up with, there was always alcohol involved. People were always drunk. So I'm so used to drunk people. I don't like it. I don't like when people get out of control drunk. I don't enjoy it. I don't really want my partner to be like that. And I still have tolerated this in every single relationship I've ever been in. And I had to go, what version of you allowed that? I'm like, well, the version that was just used to that from her childhood. She was used to drunk people, so she tolerated it and gave people the benefit of the doubt, and that's fine. But like, I get to choose now that like that's not what I want. I don't want to go out with you and be worried that you're going to get wasted and be stupid and get drunk or puke. Like, I don't want to worry about that. So it's like mourning the version of me that just dealt with this stuff, even though deep down, like it wasn't in alignment with my soul and it didn't feel good to me. I had to grieve for the me that didn't know how to be alone. Like the me that would chase and run to relationship because I was so afraid of being alone. And I tied my worth in the fact that, oh my God, at least someone loves me. At least someone wants me. And I was willing to overlook anything like, do you love yourself? Are you self-abandoning? Like, what are you giving up in you to be with this person? I couldn't look at any of that. I didn't know any of that. And so I had to grieve the version of me that always, who was willing to self-abandon and like put my needs aside and like kind of forget what mattered to me to like chameleon myself into a relationship for just being with somebody to feel like I wasn't alone. The me that was afraid to be alone, the me that I had to grieve, like not even just in my marriage, but like the me that allowed such mistreatment in previous relationships and was always giving these men the benefit of the doubt. And like when you're young, I feel like especially in relationship, you're like, oh, well, maybe it just means I'm a prude, or maybe I'm like, I don't know relationships. Like that's my first time navigating it. And so it's like, well, maybe these things are normal. And so you just give people the benefit of the doubt. Like I had to mourn the me who allowed all of this behavior because I didn't know any better. And I allowed mistreatment in previous relationships too. I sat there and I just noted all of the things that led to the breakdown. So to feel grief, not only for the breakdown of the relationship, but like the me in those moments that like caused those little micro tears and breaks in our foundation that led to the actual breakup, like the things that I felt in those moments and like the version of me that I was and how differently I would have handled that now. And like being able to forgive the girl who didn't know any better. I didn't know any better. I couldn't have changed the outcome any different because I didn't have the knowledge I have now then, right? So like even grieving that like it's okay. Like I think for so long I felt so much guilt and shame. Like, why couldn't I figure this out? Why couldn't I make this better? Why couldn't I make this relationship work? And it's like, I didn't have the tools. So give baby you and younger you a freaking break. You did the absolute best you could with the resources that you had at the time. Um, yeah. And so I also started noticing like in that and over the last week, just how much in my masculine I've been in previous relationships. And like I kind of talked about this on other podcasts, but like the need to lock it in and pursue and like have the control and clarity that like they're going to be here for me, that is a masculine thing to want to do. And it's like you kind of have to be the one that's willing to be open and be pursued and be sitting in the unknown. And that can be really scary. And so I had to also mourn the me that like chased people down to try to secure love for an attachment that it wasn't real love. And I understand love so differently now. That it's attachment and love are not the same thing. We often associate them as the same thing, but they're really not the same thing. Attachment is like, what can you do for me? What can I get from you? What needs do you meet for me? And love is like, I see you as you. I see your wounds. I see your imperfections. I see you for you. And because I love you and I accept you as you are right now, I'm choosing to love you. I'm choosing to love you, not just for like, oh my God, but I need you and like I need to attach to you because like I'm so afraid of being alone. It's just so different. And what I find now is like I don't look at people, men or not, like where I'm like, what can you do for me? Like I see you exactly as you are and I can love you. And I get to decide, is this something that I want to allow into my life? Because I love myself so much more than I'm willing to just love somebody else, that I won't really mess with my like life. Like if it doesn't mesh and it's causing me so much stress and like chaos, like I can love you from afar and be like, you're amazing, but these things about you, like I'm not really willing to accept in my life right now. And I get to choose that. And doesn't mean you don't love them. It's like you can love them and know that it's not right for you and your life. So I just want to ask you, like, what do you need to grieve about you? What do you need to grieve about the old version of you? Think relationship, it could be business, it could be friendships, like anything in your life that caused you deep pain that you think you've moved through. Maybe just question and reflect in a different way. Like, what do you need to grieve about that younger version of you? And the layers that maybe you grieved, like the situations and the external things, or like let those things go. But maybe you haven't really forgiven yourself, or like let go of the shame or the judgment that you had against yourself, or the grief and like processing who you were in that process and the sadness you might have felt. Does this make sense? So, what do you need to grieve about you? And I just kind of started writing notes about that and like different things in the relationship, and kind of like grieving for the me that didn't expect that I should just be like loved and adored and treated so well. Like I just didn't know any better. My standards were really low for what I could expect. Um, yeah, the me who settled for like not feeling worthy enough or wanted. The I don't know what this meant. Yeah, the tough times that basically I had to be alone. And like basically I just wrote like the 32-year-old me knows better and won't accept the bare minimum effort. I know the capacity I have to hold space without judgment and deserve the same and have created a beautiful life. Um, and I was like, I just can't reverse. Like I can only move forward, and the people who I allow in my life need to be moving toward that space. I also wrote like the man who holds space and allows me to feel and know how wildly incredible I am and sees me as like in my fullness and like loves it and accepts it fully. The same way that I'm going to accept and love somebody else fully, I need the same in return. And so just rewriting your story. And I think no matter where you're at in your journey, this could be like grieving the you that allowed yourself to be in an abusive relationship in the past, the you that went through sexual abuse. Like you could have like grieved, okay, this happened to me, but like have you grieved the version of you that lived through that and moved through that? So just doing that and then being able to know that like you're able to rewrite the story that you want moving forward. And regardless if you are in a relationship right now or not, you can be evolving and growing and like grieving the old version of you. Like even if the bit like your marriage right now has sucked for a long time, you can grieve the you that got you to where you are in your marriage right now, because it's you and the other person. It's not just you and it's not just him or her. it's both of you that has gotten you to that point. And like typically in your relationships, you guys are the perfect teachers, and if you're in a season of hardship right now, you're being asked to move through that in order to like, can you grow through it together? And if you haven't heard of 7-year contracts, like typically in relationships, you kind of go through a 7-year contract when it's like you get to choose, are you going to renew it with this person or not? You're not locked in forever. Yes, you may have gotten married and you want to be, but like you get to choose. And if you do choose, yes, I'm choosing this person again and I want to move through this next season together, choose to do that and know that some of the work is going to be freaking hard, but both of you need to be willing to grow, evolve, and change together, moving forward in the same direction. And like, then you can choose the next 7 years and the next 7 years. Just know that like, it's not always going to be easy, especially if you're wanting to grow, evolve, and change in life, in relationship, in anything. Like if your relationship is wildly easy, like there's something going on there. You should experience some level of conflict that's going to help both of you grow. You're going to have your own traumas. They're going to have their own traumas. You need to be willing to work through those together and like, be like, hey, look, I see you. Like just an example, I can see now, okay, this person's kind of avoidant. When he's avoidant, it makes me anxious attachment. Okay, great. If we have an anxious avoidant attachment styles, like how are we going to navigate this together? You can look at that within your partner and understand like this is how they operate. Don't expect them to be different than who they are. How are you going to merge how you operate naturally, your nervous system and your attachment style with theirs? How are you going to merge it, work together, and like create a healthy way to navigate conflict together moving forward? How are you? This is something that's so on my heart, you guys. So many men do not feel safe to be fully themselves and like let down their walls with women and with you. Even if you are their wife, the person that they chose to marry, you may not, like, as much as you want them to hold space for you, are you someone who's holding a safe space for them where they actually feel like they could drop into their deep, deep shame, the stuff that they hate themselves for and judge themselves for? Could they be open to you? And would you be able to receive it and accept them, as much as like some of this stuff is going to make you really mad, right? Like, I just think of myself, for example, like the first time I found out about the porn addiction, like, okay, I held space pretty openly of like, okay, this doesn't feel good for me, but like I'm here and I get it. And this is really tough for you. And like, I'm here to support you through it. Can you create an open space where like they know you're going to love them through it? And not that you need to be accepting of bad behavior. That's not what I'm saying. But I think as women, we have so much out there right now, especially everything I see on TikTok of like the masculine needs to do this and do this and do this. Okay, but they're also feminine. They're both. And if you don't hold a feminine space within you to hold space for his feminine, to fully express, to break down, to know that he can break down to you and he knows you're going to hold him in that. To know that like he can tell you he's not perfect and talk to you about his shame cycles and all the stuff that like breaks him down on a daily basis or like has broken him down in his life, and you're going to love him and accept him through that. And like, to me, I think that's the piece that's so often missing with relationship, especially when I listen to people speak, is I'm like, do you just get mad at him? The moment that he opens up to you, do you just freak out and get mad at him? Because of no matter, like, of course he's not going to be fully open with you. And I get it. Like some of these circumstances that I've heard, like maybe the guy is addicted to porn or like doing drugs or like, I don't know, has his thing, right? You have to know that if he truly loves you and like loves your family, like that is eating him up inside. And if you can create a safe space where it's like, don't worry, like, baby, I got you. I'm going to be here for you. I'm going to accept you through this. I know this is fucking hard, but we're choosing each other and we're going to choose to move through this together. Like, provide the safe space for him you want him to provide for you. I think sometimes we so often, like, we're projecting outside. We're like, we need him to do this and him to do that and him to do that. And it's like, no, how can you create that same thing that you're wanting in him for him? And sometimes you going first and creating that and cultivating that, not only for yourself, but for him too, it might create the space where he might actually feel like he can be open and that you're going to be accepting. And then it's like, of course, if he's doing drugs behind your back, like that's not cool. You guys get to choose how you're going to move through that together. And obviously you're going to want change, but like being that safe space for your partner to be like, I'm here for you. I love you. We're going to navigate this together. Like if you're going to move and grow together, it can't just be like you need him to show up for you in a certain way. You also need to show up for him so that he feels safe enough to like drop his walls, be vulnerable, be open, talk to you about his hard stuff, which is going to be probably different than your hard stuff because we're different. And then each hold space for each other. You guys are going to be so much more connected in that, even though might be really freaking hard. So just be mindful, like when he finally is open and vulnerable, do you just get mad at him? Because like if that's the way you kind of react, no wonder he hides stuff from you, right? Um, Okay. Yeah. And then I just kind of, what else did I want to say? The only other thing that I wanted to kind of say is like, all you can really do in this, and like what I'm noticing for me, even as I navigate the season, and even if you're married, whatever kind of relationship status you're in your healing, obviously I just went kind of on a tangent about relationships, but I feel like most of you, even if you're married, like that's something you can do for your partner, is like how can you create more of an authentic, open, trusting, honest space for both of you to communicate anything that you're going through. Um, and what I wanted to just say is like just start to recognize like how even mourning the you that self-abandoned, right? Like even if you've been in a relationship for a long time or like you were in a previous relationship, like the you that self-abandoned you in the process to secure an attachment, that could be the result of the relationship you're currently in. But it's like how can you move back towards you? Like for example, me in this like talking phase with new people, right? How have I neglected myself early on of like getting out of alignment with me? So just trying to make note of things in your life, like what do you need to do to stay aligned and grounded within you? Because that is the thing that's always going to keep you in your power. Not what is he doing and what can he do and like what therapy can he do and like how is he going to get better and how's he going to show up for me and how is this thing going to work out? Like it's like no, no, no. Come back to you. Even if again, married, not married, trying to figure out single life, all of it. It's like ultimately the power is within staying within connected to yourself. And so this is something that, again, I realized last night when I was doing yoga. I was like, whoa, this is the most peace I have felt in a while with like stillness of mind, quietness. I wasn't checking my phone. I wasn't on social media. Like I have kind of fallen out of this practice because so many nights it's like I might be talking or like messaging or whatever. And I'm like, whoa, like I'm already, even though I'm not throwing myself in a relationship, it's like in those little baby moments, those micro moments, I'm not reading. Like reading at night is like such a peaceful thing for me. Doing yoga at night or like breathing it a little bit and like sitting and drinking my tea, like these practices that I have that keep me very much in a peaceful state and like centered within me, I was kind of allowing to get pushed to the side. And so it's like if you do that, you probably did that even in your marriage or relationship, right? In the beginning. And so it's like, how do you maintain your sovereignty, yourself, and them too, especially if you're building a relationship, like you have to remain sovereign as like a you being. They are a they being, and you're choosing to come into partnership as in a communion, but like you're choosing to come into a partnership together. So many of us fully merge. And it's like now you wonder why you have conflict 5, 10, 15 years later. Like you lost so much of you, and so did they. So it's like as a couple too, like how can you, while you do grieve the old you and all these things, it's like, how do you also come back to you? And that's what I want to challenge you to do is like, who were you before this last relationship? Who were you in the beginning of this relationship? Like, who were you? What did you love? Or like, what do you love right now? And how can you incorporate more time to do those things to stay so connected to you? It's going to better every relationship in your life. It's going to keep you more centered and grounded in your choices and your businesses and how you show up in your relationships. It's going to make you a better mom. Like if you're a mom, like there's so much you can do. And so for me, I just realized that last night, that's kind of all I just wanted to share with like the little update on just trust that in your healing journey, like you will only be brought to where you're ready to be brought to. I encourage you so much to go on the deeper somatic work of like breath work and all of that and how much that can change your life. And just trust that you will be shown exactly what you need to as you need to. And you don't need to rush it. You don't need to control it. Trust that everything that's meant for you is going to be there for you, no matter what your timeline is. And through grieving the old versions of you that allowed mistreatment, whether that be work related, business related, friendship related, relationship related, just ask yourself, like, what versions of you do you need to grieve in order to step into this new version of you? The one that's growing and evolving and becoming super aligned within you. Because you might be surprised that there's some layers there that you were unaware of, which, like me, I was. And then what brings you the most peace? And how can you incorporate more of that into your life? Because for me, I realized like I need to get back to, no matter what is going on, prioritizing my yoga, my breathing, because that's what yoga does, right? It brings you so much into your breath, which brings you into your body, which allows for stillness, quieting the mind. That's when magic happens. I created the safe space for myself last night that my body was like, oh, thank you so much. Like you've had all this to release. And so it moved me through that, right? How can you create that safe space for you? in your life, and just like stay committed to that. If anything else, no matter how crazy your life is right now, no matter how crazy your relationship is, if you think it's going to fail, if you think it's going to stay together, if you think your business is failing, if you're not sure what you're going to do, like no matter what is going on in your life, you guys, so often we start neglecting and distracting ourselves from the exact thing that's going to give us our clarity and our answers. And that's the stillness of our mind and connecting to ourselves. So if there's anything I can encourage you, even if you're not ready to go to some workshop or like go do some serious breath work, is do some yoga, prioritize reading a book, put your phone away, connect to you, get out in nature, go for a walk, go do things that are going to help you stay connected to you, because the most powerful version of you is the you that's deeply connected within. Okay, so stay connected to yourself, surround yourself with people who can frickin' see you, challenge you, and want you to elevate and grow. I'm just so grateful. Like I was talking to my friend and we both went to the relationship intensive, and like she's met this guy who she's like, oh my gosh, he's hitting all the notes. Like he's hitting everything on my list. Like this is so beautiful. I feel this beautiful soul connection. And me and her are both like, wow, look at us being rewarded for doing the work. And I just want to encourage you that like in the hard and in the emotions, in the messy, if you stay committed to your own growth, I promise you the people that you're going to attract into your life are going to elevate and just be such a better match. Not just relationships, friendships, right? Like everything. Like let things fall away that are not meant to be, as hard as it is. Let them fall away and just trust. Like if you go on this journey, your partner, whoever, your friends, like they're either going to see you and rise to the occasion, or like they're going to fall away and let it. Either way, you're elevating to the most high version of you. And sometimes that means death in terms of like your life, your circumstances, the people. Sometimes you got to let that shit die and go. Sometimes you need to let yourself die and go in order to move to that next version of you. And so just you will be the most powerful version of you when you stay connected to you, and just trust that as you do this work, you are going to be surrounded by people. I know in the beginning it feels so lonely, like it's just you and you're fighting against like, there's like no one else like me and there's no one else out there. And how am I going to find these people? The people in my life right now, you guys, are most of them are on the same path. They're elevating, they're growing, they're challenging themselves. And I'm a better person because of these people that are in my life now. And I'm just so grateful. So just trust, if you stay on this journey, you do the work, you're going to be surrounded by the right people eventually. Okay. Stay connected to yourself, stay connected to your heart, especially if you're single right now, like and dating. Don't lose yourself. Stay connected to you, stay grounded in you, especially as the female and the feminine. You are the magnetic butterfly. Oh my God. Stay connected to you. It's the most powerful thing you can do. And like, and when you're in your feminine, you just receive. So let things come to you and receive it by staying grounded and centered in you. Thank you so much. Oh my gosh. No. Thank you for being here.